One of the hallmarks of Irish poetry is its beautiful lyricism, perhaps best exemplified by William Butler Yeats. Today we're going to take a look at one of that poet's most famous works, a poem that started from a desire to get away from it all. Welcome to a reading, summary, and analysis of William Butler Yeats's The Lake Isle of Innisfree. I will arise and go now and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin build there of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honey bee, and live alone in the bee-loud glade. And I shall have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the vales of the morning to where the crickets sing, there midnight's all a glimmer, and noon a purple glow, and evening full of the linnet's wings. I will arise and go now, for always night and day I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore, while I stand on the roadway or on the pavements gray. I hear it in the deep heart's core. So Yeats wrote The Lake Isle of Innisfree in 1888, and it exemplifies Celtic revival, an attempt to create a distinctly Irish literature as opposed to English literature. And I think you can see him doing this just by the look of it on the page. It doesn't quite have the uniform iambic pentameter line structure, any of that sort of stuff. But there is a structure there, even if it's not something that's going to be as remarkably familiar to most readers as a sonnet. And one of the things I want to look at with this structure is how it fits the function of the poem. So you see that this is actually a pretty basic rhyme scheme. Free and B, made and glade. So we have an A-B rhyme scheme, and it continues with each new stanza. But the rhymes are a little bit hard to hear. There's a subtlety to these rhymes. Even though only one line, the first line in stanza 3, night and day, is enjambed, all the rest have end-stop punctuation to them, so they should be very obvious. However, because there's different lengths to the lines, the rhymes are somewhat buried. And I really like this for this poem because this poem is all about hearing water, but there's a subtlety to it. One of the things I ask my students is, where is the speaker? And some of them will say, oh, the Lake Isle of Innisfree, and I can, see why they would think that. But if you read the poem carefully, you'll notice that we are not at the Lake Isle of Innisfree. We are actually in the city. You don't get this till the very end of the poem. I mean, you can figure out that he needs to go to the Lake Isle, so he's probably not there. But it's not until the very end of the poem that you realize where exactly the speaker is. I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore, while I stand on the roadway or on the pavements gray. I hear it in the deep heart's core. So we are on the roadway or the gray pavement. The speaker is in the city. And the speaker gets this desire to go to the Lake Isle of Innisfree. And this is a place that Yeats actually vacationed at as a child. And according to him, he got inspired to write this poem because he remembered something from that childhood, from that vacationing when he was in London, when he was in this massive city. And he has a desire to go there. But this is not simply go on vacation. If you read the poem carefully, there's actually a lot of hard work built into it. Building a small cabin, 9 bean rows, a hive for the honeybee. But stanza 2 shows us why all this hard work is worth it, because there is peace. And we get this beautiful description of nature and especially the senses here. As Yeats walks us through the day, not in time order, interestingly. We go morning to midnight to noon to evening, a day that is perhaps less structured than days in the city are, where you tend to be on deadline and need to be certain places at certain times. Here, we move around from time of day to different time of day, and there's always nature and the interaction with the senses. The crickets sing in the morning. Midnight, there is glimmer. Noon, a purple glow, and evening is full of the linnet's wings. And just like we subtly hear this rhyme throughout the poem, the speaker hears the sound of water. And the line that Yeats brings out the sound of water has a beautiful sound just in and of itself. I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore. So we get this repetition of the L and the SSH sound in just that one line. One of the reasons I love this poem is it has this sort of amalgamation of different moments of literature. As I mentioned, we have the Celtic revival in here, where Yeats and others are trying to distance themselves from the English art style. So we have someone who is in a city wanting to go into nature, specifically Irish nature, right? There's a specificity to this poem. It's not anywhere in nature, it's a real place, the Lake Isle of Innisfree. But we also have this interesting connection to the United States and American literature because Yeats is inspired by the works of Henry David Thoreau and Transcendentalism. If you're at all familiar with Walden, the imagery in the first stanza is easy to match up with that work. We have that small cabin, we're by a lake, although Walden's a pond, but it's a big pond, and then we're interacting with nature. 9 bean rows. That's pretty famous in Walden, that Henry David Thoreau is planting beans. And it's kind of one of the jokes of Walden is his difficulty with farming the beans. And we get this real sense in the poem of wanting to go out and be self-reliant, of wanting to go out and live away from it all. But it's interesting to me that we never find out if the speaker actually does go there. I will arise and go now, for always night and day I hear lake water. There's a sense that this is something that's happened before. The speaker tells us they are going to go, but this is not the first time they've heard lake water. And I think for all of us, we can relate to wanting to get away, to wanting to have a change of pace, to perhaps even wanting to uproot our lives entirely and try something totally new. And what sends us to do that? Or do we actually do it? Is a 2-week vacation once a year enough? Or do you need to totally relocate? It's something that the Lake Isle of Innisfree asks us, and it doesn't give us the exact answer, but we can see that there is peace there. We can see the beauty of getting out into nature. It's just a lot more easier said than done. Thoreau was only on Walden Pond for 2 years, and he still took his laundry in to have it done by his mother. Yeats ended up being a little bit resentful that this poem of his was one of his most famous during his lifetime. But the other thing I find really interesting is that this problem is not one just of the modern contemporary world. We see it with Thoreau in the middle 1800s, we see it with Yeats at the end of the 1800s, and we see it with ourselves today. And perhaps that's why this is a poem that has endured so much. It's been referenced by a number of famous musicians. It shows up in multiple TV shows and films, as well as other works of literature, and it's even printed in part of the Irish passport. So it's an enduring poem, and I think for good reason. There's a beauty to it, and it serves as a great reminder that when we feel a call to get into nature and away from the email, stoplight, meetings, and rise and grind of the world, that's something we should perhaps heed, even if it's not permanently. Even if getting out there is not the easiest thing in the world, there's value in it. We hear it in our deep heart's core. Something we should listen to. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful to you. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them down below, and I'll get to them as soon as I can. See you in the next one. Happy reading.